Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode number,
34.
34. 34 of Restitching the Tapestry. We're getting so high up, I'm forgetting the numbers. Ari and I are coming into this episode tonight having slightly different angles to our videos. Mine's a little bit higher up, and I actually have a ring light this time because normally I'm lazy and I just use my desk light, and Ari has a completely different angle in their room. So yeah, I guess you could kind of consider this
And no ring light because my cat ate it.
yes, Ari's cat Larity is a little monster and destroyed some technology. Never a boring moment with animals, right?
Right.
So do you have a drink of choice this evening?
No, I actually no drink tonight. I'm drying. I'm going into dry.
Well, good luck with that. Mine is Lady Grey tea. That's been my trademark beverage most evenings lately, so yay for that. So before we get into talking about our topic, because I mean, this topic is going to be a pretty deep and personal topic tonight because we both have had experiences with medications and mental health. Um, let's just share what we've been doing lately and how we've been doing. So, how have you been, Ari? What have you been up to?
I have been cleaning. I know it doesn't look like it looking at my background, but actually I have been getting doing some spring cleaning, getting stuff in order, uh, doing some writing, just getting ready for spring.
Same here, essentially. I'm really excited about spring. For me, I've been doing pretty well. I've been having a few like minor mental health things over the past couple of weeks, and I did a video about it. You probably saw that. But I'm doing pretty good today. Like today on a mental health scale, I'm at a solid 8 or 9, which is pretty good. But beyond that, I've just been doing work. I've been trying to do some yard work. I've been doing some writing too. I'm doing a promotion for my book right now, a charity cause. So
I
um,
saw that. That
I
looks
know
really amazing.
I'm super excited. Except I also the other night I had like this realization that it's super ironic considering it takes cutting down trees to actually make my and print my book. So just to, in a nutshell, everyone, all of my royalties from Carbon Footprint this month are going toward the Arbor Day nonprofit organization. So um, I and basically this organization um, seeks to it's like a tree conservation nonprofit, and it involves planting trees and protecting environment, so on and so forth. So I just wanted to do something, I don't know, productive with my own sales of that. I mean, I don't expect it to be a huge influx, but it's something fun that I thought might be kind of neat to do since Earth Day and Arbor Day are part of April, and it's also National Poetry Month, and it's Autism Acceptance Month. Like April is doing a lot. Like there is a lot happening in April.
It's true.
So anyway, before we get started with the topic, I do want to make sure that we read our show's mission statement. So many witness different atrocities, large or small, that frays the social fabric around us, and much of the time, many may feel powerless and know not how to address such things. This fray has gotten worse with the rise of social media, being able to share in a collective trauma as these events go viral. And these experiences are shared on a mass scale. So there's a considerable amount of collective grief and outrage associated with those. And when Ari and I were creating this show, our thought was, what can we do to mend in some way, in our own way, these communities that have seen considerable tragedy? And our goal with this show is to restitch the tapestry, have difficult conversations that are educational, and in some way maybe share some tidbits with all of you that we also learn, that might be meaningful or beneficial. Okay. And I know that Ari and I have really wanted to talk about this topic for a while, medications and mental health. And it's been something that I've been exploring a lot over the past few months. So I have a lot of very, very fresh experience to talk about regarding that, meaning I'm going to be ranting quite a bit, but that's besides the point. So I'm pretty excited to talk about this. Before we get on to talking for sure, I do want to note that we are watching the chat box. So if you have any comments that you'd like to share, please share. We have Leo, Shayna, we have Arpy, Mia's here. We have quite a few people here so far. So if you haven't chimed in and said hi yet, feel free to do so. Or if you just prefer to listen, that's totally fine also. Okay. So, Ari, where to begin with this? This is a pretty large, expansive topic, right? So, do you want to kind of share your journey? I mean, we've shared each other's mental health journey in the past. Let's share the segments of our journey that led us to medication in some way.
Um,
You first, not to put you on the spot.
so I never thought that I would take medication. When I was in my 20s, uh, it was always used as a threat by my mother of, do you need medication? When I was saying that I was depressed. So it was always used as like a, well, do you need to be on medication? And I would be like, no, 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 I don't need to be on medication. I'm fine. I'm fine. And it was sort of like, I it was sort of like, I'm not that mentally ill. I'm having a bad time right now. And like trying to like convey that I'm struggling. Um, but when I was diagnosed with bipolar, I was put on medication. And originally, I wouldn't take the medication because I was under psychosis, and I was distrustful of doctors. Um, and I thought that they were sugar pills. Like, I didn't think that they were real.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and my sister convinced me to take them for her, that if I took them, it would make her feel better. And so I started taking the medication, and that's when I started coming down from my psychosis. I started gaining weight because of the medication. But that's why I started taking the medication, is because she convinced me. Because otherwise I wouldn't have taken medication at all. So
Mm.
that it's, I mean, but that it now I know that the benefits of it, but back then I was very anti-medication because I had there was so much wrapped up into it. So
Yeah, there is a lot of stigma surrounding medication, for sure. Um, like some of my experiences echo yours as well in a way, because like I've had individuals in my life kind of hold medication over me in the sense that, oh, well, if you're that far gone, Donnie, then you should be on it so you don't, go off the deep end, quote unquote. Just like very like
accus-
troubling,
accusatory almost.
accusatory, ableist language that made me ultimately feel guilty for even expressing that I was having challenges with having a mental illness, right? So when I was a teenager, I knew that I had a mental illness. I knew that I would have like really, really low lows, and that I would have, and as I got older, I would have like these shifts, like these very drastic shifts in mood. Like I would have like really like, high highs, like I would be like in this manic state, and then it would be like a rubber band effect, and I would snap back and be very, very low for an extended period of time. And then I would go months without experiencing that. So it was like it was very hard to track. Like sometimes the stints were so long in between that I just kind of dismissed it, and I was like, it's not a big deal. Nothing's really going on. It's just me being an emo kid. um but like I've had, like, my family has a history of needing like of having been placed on medication. The grandmother, for example, that was emotionally abusive, she also battled with mental illness. And at one point, she was on numerous medications, including lithium and a couple of other things. And it, like, some of the medications conflicted with one another, and it triggered a lot of side effects for her, including like memory loss and everything, that it just complicated her life considerably. So my entire family kind of adopted this mentality that medication is bad in every context, like really, really bad. Don't trust it, especially if it's for mental health. Well, of course, my uncle a few years ago took his life. That kind of reopened a very important conversation about mental health in my family. And at that point, that's when I was becoming a little bit more conscious of my own mental health, my shifts in mood. Before, I could kind of control my shifts, but then it got to a point where I couldn't control it, and it became very draining. I was having suicidal ideation to the extent where I was making plans um, and trying to find ways to rationalize very dark thoughts. That's when I realized that this, like, if it's something that I can't control with what I've learned in therapy alone, that means that in my mind, like, I justified it as there clearly is some sort of chemical imbalance happening that needs to be either corrected or rebalanced in some way,
Right.
So that's what led me to exploring the option of medication. And truthfully, it was encouragement from listening to other people's stories, like yours, for example, Ari. My partner has been on medication in the past. My friend Lacey has been very upfront with me about her own experiences. So being able to see people in my life, and that kind of helped destigmatize the conditioning that I had that made me believe that medication is an evil, that it's bad, Now, and I think that my own journey, a lot of it had to do with kind of unlearning my own shame with regard to my mental health. And I know that you can relate with this as well, Ari, because you mentioned this, but like a lot of people who face mental health challenges and journeys, like, usually have had people in their lives who have tried to shame them or gaslight them in some way, to warp their reality in some way, to make them feel like they are some sort of burden or hindrance on people around them because of their mental illness. And I had to accept and understand that people saying those things were wrong, and that they were just being toxic people. So a combination of all of that is what helped me, you know, realize that medication for me would be the best route to take.
Yeah, for me, it was medication and therapy, and just having to go to a slew of doctors to um it was a bunch of things. It wasn't just one thing, but medication certainly was like the first punch in the battle against the problem that I was facing. And um, I tried to go off my meds at one point because after I had my first episode, uh, it was in the wintertime, and my therapist thought, oh, it was an isolated incident. You're better now. You don't need the medication. Like, we're trying to wean you off. And they tried to wean me off. And then I started uh, getting messages from my radio.
Mm-hmm.
And I started having all of these like ideas in my head about stuff. And I started getting really paranoid again. And I started uh, experiencing psychosis again. And it was because I needed the medication. And it was just like, I needed to be on it. And I bought a plane ticket. I went to LA and I wandered around an apartment building for 16 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And it was bad. And I had enough medication in my system that after a while I was like, whoo, I need to go to the hospital. Like, this is bad. And I called my doctor and I called my therapist and I said, hey, uh, I'm having a mental health crisis right now. I'm gonna go check myself into the hospital. Uh, so I'm gonna go now. And he said that that was like really like important or really it was really good that I did that. That not many people would be able to stop themselves from doing that. But I blame the fact that I had medication built up in my system that I was able to bring myself down enough. If I did not have enough medication built up in my system, I think that I wouldn't have been able to think clearly enough to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I just I just would have just been full blown psychosis, and just gone off the deep end and gotten arrested again.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to, in a way, rationalize, like kind of like examine the situation due to that medication, like that. Like, I mean, it could have been a very unsafe situation, especially if you weren't able to do that, right?
Right.
Not to mention, I can't imagine, like, it must have been a very scary situation knowing that you were in a completely different place, alone, you know? So I completely commend you for being able to do that.
Shayna,
Um,
I'm sorry they called you names in school when they found out you were taking psychiatric meds. It's, if you need them, you need them. And it shouldn't be that you get teased for something that you need.
yeah.
Psychiatric meds are no joke. And it's it's not because you're a bad person or you're going through a hard time. It's just that this is the reality of the situation. And if you need medication, you need medication.
And unfortunately, those people just have no idea what the reality is like needing to have those medications. So they're bullying out of ignorance and they're just acting on that conditioning, that stigma that those mean that a person is a psycho, and that's not the case at all. So I'm also sorry that you had to experience that, hon. Um, I'm backtracking a little bit in the chat box so we can catch up on some things. So, um, Rogue Agent Killer Rodan says that lack of emotional support can be extremely dangerous. I agree completely. Um, Leo says a lot of people loathe medication because it makes them question their more odd religious beliefs. They think that it makes you stray away from God. There are a lot of stigmas surrounding medication that stem from a whole variety of different things. Leo also mentioned that Leo said that, like your grandmother, Donny, she is very, very abusive. So Leo's grandmother, and uses the condition, the grandmother's condition, to try to manipulate the family. It's a roller coaster. I'm sorry about that. Wow. Goodness. Yeah. Well, it definitely sounds like that some people who are tuning in tonight definitely have had their own experiences, either with medication of their own, being on it themselves, or knowing people in their lives that have been on it in some way. I know for me, when I first got placed on medication, it was a really, like, I knew that it needed to happen, but I was like really paranoid about it too. It was, and I know we'll talk about that here in just a little bit, but now I guess we did talk a little bit. I mean, we've touched on a few questions already. We talked about what was involved, how we got to the point of being on medication, kind of how we overcame stigmas. Ari, did you talk about how you overcame stigmas, like internalized or?
No. So how I overcame the stigmas of medication is so for me it was a matter of um one, I had to can first of all, I convinced myself I was taking sugar pills, and then I just was like just taking them, and then I was just like, I'm just gonna take these, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, well, I'm not out nothing. So there's no I'm not at a loss because I was a psychotic at that point, and I was just like, well, there's no real loss at anything. So I was just like, whatever. So when I saw results of the pills, I was like, oh, we lost Donnie. So when I saw results of the pills, it was great because I felt like I was actually getting something done, and I I don't know, like I felt like I was really at a certain point becoming more of myself again. Yeah. And when I became more myself, I was I was like, well, I'm not going to stop taking this medication. So, um, yeah, so that's how I got over the stigmas of that. Um, but I can understand that most people might not come to that realization in the same way that I did, because that's a really weird way of uh, overcoming stigmas of medication is through psychosis. But it worked for me, to say the least. But you know, um,
Hey, sorry about that.
I was just talking about how I I took sugar pills. I thought they were sugar pills, and I just overcame it by thinking they were sugar pills, and it started working for me. And when it worked, I basically kept taking them, and you know, I wasn't going to stop taking them. So, but I won't realize that most people aren't going to come to that same realization that I did.
So So you had your own way of kind of overcoming like those conditioned stigmas, right? By the way,
Right.
I'm so sorry that I got kicked off. My internet literally just went down completely. Don't know why, but it somehow came back, so that's good. So can always rely on technology to be super reliable at all times.
I was just rambling. It's fine.
It's perfect. I love it. I love it. Okay, so anyway, so we both have had like our own journeys overcoming those stigmas that we've had that have been conditioned in us for a long, long time. And I mean that it kind of leads us to this next question. And I have people ask me this question all the time where they ask, Donnie, do you feel better? Do you feel better? And I think that's a question that we should explore. So, Ari, do you feel better now that you're on
Um,
medication? Like 100%.
it's not about feeling better, it's about feeling even. I feel even now. I don't feel psychotic. I don't feel paranoid. I don't feel scared. I don't feel a lot of the things I felt when I was psychotic. So I don't feel those things anymore. I don't get messages from the radio. I don't have ideas about music that I used to have. I don't get scared of old white men. I don't have delusional thoughts about David Lynch. I don't have ideas about car horns. So those are all of my triggers. So, like, for me, it's not about feeling better, it's about feeling even.
I like that explanation, and I completely feel that as well. One thing that really shifted my thought process with medication was like my partner and I had a really, really deep sit down one night where like I was going through like I had just come off on like a manic episode and I was like really, really, really low. And when I get when that rubber band effect happens and I'm really, really, really low, those are stints of time where I am constantly having suicidal ideation. And my partner said, Donnie, you shouldn't have to deal with that burden of wanting to kill yourself all the time. That is why I think that medication should be an important avenue for you. Like, Donnie, you shouldn't have to experience that weight. You shouldn't have to be putting yourself through that when you
Mm-hmm.
do have an option where it would lift that weight in a healthy way and help you feel like you're not a burden on people around you, help you feel as though you don't need to rationalize an extreme thing like that. And that really got me realizing that, yes, it is a weight. It is a ridiculous weight to have to have. And since I've been put on medication, I rarely have suicidal ideation anymore. And it was like surfacing after being underwater for a long time and being able to breathe for the first time. It was painful at first. It was overwhelmingly bright. It was like very overwhelming in general, but it feels amazing to not have that weight
Mm-hmm.
anymore.
Right.
And he like even my therapist has had conversations with me where where it was framed for me in this fashion where she said, Donnie, like it isn't like being mentally healthy does not accommodate having to power through constant suicidal ideation.
Right.
That is not what feeling mentally healthy should entail. But because I had been so used to it, I rationalized that I didn't need anything, that I could just get through it because in our Western society, that's how we're conditioned. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Oh,
power
yeah.
through. And I, like, having that reframe for me, I was just like, wow, I am still living by that conditioning. Like I am still perpetuating that. And that was the catalyst that really got me to the point where I was like, I need to feel better. I can't settle for feeling like this. So
It's true. And I'm still kind of getting over that bootstrap mentality where it's okay for me to ask for help. Like, I have all of these people around me who want me to help me. And like, it's so weird to ask for help.
mhm, I definitely feel that. Part of me has always associated asking for help with me being a burden on those people doing the helping. And that's been my big struggle, and it's something that I still have to kind of wrangle from time to time. It's gotten a little bit easier since I've been in therapy and on medication, but it's that conditioning is so deep that I think that it's something that we're going to just have to be vigilant about,
Mm-hmm.
for as long as we need to be.
Right.
Oh, RP, I like that you mentioned that because one of the first things my therapist told me was because a lot of my issues and insecurities had a lot to do with feeling like I didn't belong in the space that I inhabit. And my therapist said, Donnie, you have the right to exist in the spaces that you inhabit. And that was so unbelievably important for
Powerful.
me to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's because you are important, Donnie.
Right back at you, my friend.
Thank
Oh, I love this. Like these conversations are difficult, but they're so wholesome. I think they're very meaningful. Um, Rogue Agent Killer Rodan says, even when nobody believes in you, remember that I do. That's so sweet. Thank you. Shayna makes a great point and says that medications aren't a cure for all, but they do take the edge off, and that helps people function better. It helps maintain a quality of life. And that's something that my therapist helped me realize too, that it's not necessarily like it's not a cure, but it allows you to be able to function in society, to work, to do everyday things, to get up and bathe yourself, to clean your house, to create, to coexist, all of those different things. Yeah.
you. To just do the things that like the average person, like the neurotypical person, would be able to do without medication.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And the truth is, for a lot of people who do struggle with mental health, the smallest day to day things could seem as horrifyingly arduous as running an Olympic marathon,
Right.
I remember even on my lowest days, like just even taking a dish from my bedroom to the kitchen was a monumental feat. And being on medication has helped me, let's just say, elevate those feats a little bit more over moving a dish. um let's see here. Do. Oh, I adore you guys. I adore all of you. So, let's move on to our discussion questions. We have a lot of discussion questions because, I mean, there's just a lot of avenues to explore with regard to this topic, right? So these are ones that both Ari and I have generated together, and I think we've kind of answered the first one already. Our first discussion question was, what have been the benefits of being on medication? Obviously, for me, not feeling suicidal constantly is definitely a benefit. Like, being able to function is such a huge benefit. Having
Mm-hmm.
energy, so on and so forth.
Just feeling even and normal, and just feeling like a productive member of society again, and feeling like I I won't just spoil away in a mental hospital for the rest of my life because I because I have once again had an episode, or because they got my meds right finally. It took a while for them to get my meds right. When they first had me come down from Seattle, I was on uh, a large amount of meds, and so I was experiencing brain fog. I was drooling. I was just very tired all the time. I was sleeping like 19 hours a day, and I was a zombie. Like I literally would just be like, and then I would sit there watching TV at my mom's house, and my mom would be like, why are you looking like that? And like my mom just thought that I was never going to be the same again, that I was just going to always just that her child was just forever changed, and just that everything was ruined, like that I had been become a zombie, and this is how the new normal was. um but then they reduced my meds, and I started to kind of enliven again. And I was able to get a job for a while until they took me off the meds, and then I had the episode, and then I went on to disability. Uh, so, and I could go back to work, but my family has advised against it. They're afraid of me having another episode, but um, you know, uh, the medications have made it possible for me to lead mostly a normal life and mostly an average life. I do creative things. I have a good life.
See, it's interesting that you brought up those challenges with medication at first, because our next question is, what have the downfalls been of being on medication? And the truth is, what makes medication challenging at first is it takes time to figure out what's best for you. When it comes to the type of medication, the amount of the medication, what it might be paired with, the timeline in which you need to be on it. There are a lot of variables, and if you have a good therapist and a good doctor or a good psychiatrist, like, they will work with you to make sure that you find the right balance. And by the way, I just wanted to go back. Shayna says, no matter what happens, I love you both, Donny and Ari, so much, and I'm always here for you. That's very sweet. Likewise, we
Yay.
love you too.
We love you, Shayna.
Um, for me, like, 'cause my journey with medication has been a pretty recent journey, and I know some of you already know about it, especially Ari, because I've been very upfront with Ari about it outside of our stream. But I've been on a couple of different medications so far. The first one, I was feeling mentally fabulous, but physically I felt like I felt disgusting constantly. I was constantly nauseous. I had constant heartburn. I would be woken up in the middle of the night feeling like I was going to throw up constantly. And I can deal with any side effect that is not that. I am not I am not the person to be dealing with nausea at all whatsoever. If you are that person and you can deal with it, you are a champ. You deserve some you deserve Grammys, Emmys, Tony Award, all of it. But anyway, so like I just it got to the point where I didn't want to eat. I wasn't physically active because I was afraid of being physically active. There was a span of probably 2 to 3 weeks where I was afraid to go to sleep because I didn't want to be woken up feeling nauseous and having an anxiety attack on top of it, because I also discovered that I have a significant phobia of throwing up. So like it was kind of like this one thing was snowball affecting into another thing. So I finally told my doctor about it. My doctor was like, "You should have told me hell a long time ago." And I'm like, I know, but I'm still unlearning like a lot of this pull yourself up by your bootstraps thing. Like everybody in my life deals with nausea way better than me, and I felt really guilty that it was literally impacting my quality of life. But it got to a point where I was like, I shouldn't have to feel miserable. When I got switched to the medication that I'm currently on and my stomach went back to normal, it it literally I had that experience again where it felt like I was finally coming to the surface of the water and breathing for the first time ever. I was able to eat, and I was able to, exercise. I was able to be physically active. I was able to sleep. That was it. I didn't realize how much I had tried getting used to feeling horrible. And so like and my learning experience from that is if you go an extended period of time suffering from side effects of the medication, you need to talk to somebody, because again, it comes back to that quality of life thing. If that medication side effects are preventing you from having quality of life, then there needs to be some sort of adjustment made. And doctors and therapists and stuff will help with that.
It's true.
Yeah. So it's been a wild ride, but I'm at a point now where it's better. It's so much better.
I think one of the downsides of medication too is like when you come off medication, like I had brain zaps. That
Yep.
was like one of my bad stories. I was on Cymbalta briefly for depression, and I got taken off it, and I had the worst brain zaps. Have you ever had brain zaps?
Oh yeah. When I got taken off from Effexor, which is that medication I was talking about, I was having really, really bad brain zaps. And they're so strange to even describe. It's like you're having like this brain fog, but at the same time, you feel like your brain is being electrocuted, like it's shivering in your skull. It's such a weird
It's like
sensation.
ice, and it's like electrified, and it's like crunching.
Yeah, and it caused like sometimes it would kind of cause me to have like sort of vertigo too, which of course did not help nausea. So like I was just like, damn it. Like really?
So a brain zap is happens when you come off of a depression med. It basically is it it's it's little electro. It's basically a little seizure that happens in your brain uh, every so often. It feels really awful,
Yeah.
uh, but it feels sort of like you're being kind of electrocuted almost.
And they can have varying levels of severity. I actually had them when I was put on Effexor for the first time also. Transitioning into the medication, I was having brain zaps because my body was not used to that like level of serotonin and norepinephrine. That's why I couldn't do Effexor, is because not only did it boost serotonin, but it was a medication designed to also boost adrenaline, and I didn't need that. I am fine with adrenaline. Like so like it while I was having brain zaps, I also felt like my heart rate was constantly increasing and fluctuating. I felt like I was dizzy all the time, and like I literally like it was supposed to help alleviate my anxiety, but it was having the opposite effect. And that's when my doctor was like, oh, you should have definitely told me about that, because if it's having the opposite effect, that means that it's definitely not the right medication for you.
I don't know if they're medically concerning, but they are a side effect uh, of coming off or going of the drugs. So,
My therapist, she told me that, like, if I'm having brain zaps, that I probably shouldn't do anything. I have the hiccups, I apologize. Do anything like driving, because sometimes they can be a little bit disorienting. But I haven't heard anything about them being medically concerning necessarily either.
it's just like your brain is just having like little,
Mhm.
they're just little seizures.
Yeah. And Rogue Agent says, I hate going to the hospital. I'm nothing against doctors. I just hate going there. I think hospitals like cause a lot of anxiety for people, so I can relate with that too.
I'm so used to going to the hospital now. Like, it doesn't even bother me anymore. Like, because I've had so many episodes, and so when I have an episode, I know it's just time to go to the hospital.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
like, but the hardest part about when you have an episode, okay, I'm gonna tell you what it's like to have bipolar and have psychosis. So the worst part about having an episode with psychosis is you have to go through the ER, right? And they make you wait in the ER for like 8 hours before they get you a bed in behavioral health. So you're just waiting and you're 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 waiting. And like they have beds, but you have to wait. So and like it's a cold bed and they have like this thin blanket. And like you're in like one of those like hospital gowns. Oh, it's the worst.
Mm.
It's the worst.
The waiting bit is just mind-boggling to me. Oh my goodness.
It's worse than jail.
I can imagine, especially because, like, I mean, you're having that episode, like, for all you know, being in that setting could exasperate it, or, um, yeah,
At
wow.
least in jail, they put you next to other people and you can talk to them. But they put you in a room by yourself with nurses around, and the nurses don't want to talk to you because they're on their phones.
Right, they're doing their own thing. Yeah. So the next discussion question that we have is, what should people do if they think they need help? So, there are a lot of answers to it, I think. And it really depends on an individual situation. I really do think the most important step in getting help is acknowledging that you need it. Um, because then that will leave you open to exploring different avenues, whether it be pursuing therapy or medication or both, or going to the doctor and telling your doctor about it. Some people do that instead of going to therapy. It really depends on what you think would work best for you. Ari, do you have a better answer to that than I do?
If you're low income and you don't have a doctor, there are programs out there. There are community outreach programs that will help you find a doctor, get you on a caseworker, and get you into seeing somebody and seeing get you into seeing who you need to see to get what you need to see to get done, especially if you're needing medication. Like, you don't have to do this alone. You can get the help you need. Uh, it just requires a couple extra steps.
Mm-hmm. And it requires taking kind of a leap of faith for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Yeah.
Because um because I'm low income and I have a caseworker, and I see him every other week. Actually, he called me today and I actually didn't answer his call. I'm supposed to go walking with him today and I kind of put him off, but whatever.
But knowing that you have that person also that's looking out for you,
Right,
like that's super significant.
right. And he constantly is looking out for me and has goals for me and make sure that I talk to my psychiatrist and like make sure that I'm on track and like that I'm doing the right thing and that I'm using the system properly and that he's doing what he needs to do on his end. Like, you can get the help you need.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I get mad at movies like The Joker, because it's like he would have never lost his medication. Like, they have so many, like, they would have made sure he had his medication.
Yeah. There are programs in place, systems in place that would have come to his aid in some fashion, you know.
Like, they're not going to just cut off funding, like, oh, yeah, we're going to cut off funding so you don't have medication anymore. Like, it just doesn't work like that. It just doesn't work like that.
It kind of comes back to that, like that ableist kind of scenario where, like, you know, that people who created it didn't really consider things from the perspective of people who do struggle with mental health every day.
That's why I get so mad about it. It's like, you didn't even think, you didn't even think.
um so the next question that we had was, does medication help in your day-to-day life? And I think we kind of answered that one already. um for both of us, based on what we've been discussing, it just helps us feel like more balanced, like we're able to function and perform day-to-day tasks. Was there
Um,
anything else you wanted to add to that too, Ari?
I think that the thing about day-to-day life with medication is like you have to take it every day, and that's kind of a bummer. Like, having to actually take the pills every day is kind of a downer. So I mean, it does help every day, but like the routine of having to take it every day is it does kind of wear on you after a while, like having to actually take the pills.
Also, the routine of having to like call in your prescriptions when you need more, making sure that you do it in a timely fashion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rogue Agent says DC has a bad reputation when it comes to displaying the mentally disabled. Yes,
Yes.
for sure. I would argue that even Marvel has issues with that too. There is
Yes.
not good representation at all.
No.
Let's see. The next question is, if you see results in your mental health, do you attribute them to the medication or to other factors in your life? Is it hard to disambiguate the two? Ari, do you want to start with answering that one?
Um, so for me, I have a hard time with this because, is it therapy or is it the drugs? And I, I can't tell, like, because it's incremental changes. I have done a lot of really great work in therapy, where I've talked to my therapist and made really great strides in therapy. And I have taken the medication along the way, and the medication has evened me out. So maybe it's a little bit of both. It's that 1-2 punch that has made me kind of stable and where I am now. So no, I can't disambiguate the two. I can't. It's sort of like I just have this fight that I am fighting between the two, and I just have tools in my toolbox, and I'm just gonna fight this fight, and I am using whatever is necessary to get it done.
Yeah, like I definitely echo that too. Like for me, I guess if I were to like compartmentalize it in some way, therapy has helped me find my confidence in pursuing the avenue of medication, but it also helps me better communicate my mental health to other people, and it helps me develop some strategies and methods for handling situations where my mental health is triggered by something that's tangible. Medication has helped me in the sense that it's helped balance those shifts that aren't necessarily triggered by something like social or physical in my surroundings. So it's like this combination of having tools, but also having that extra bit of serotonin and meaningful um, things being stimulated in my mind to help keep that balance going.
Mhm.
Yeah. Interesting. I will admit though, like going back to that communication tidbit, therapy has really helped me communicate my mental health so much better than I could before. Um, because before, like I was able to communicate my mental health, but I was more apt to shut down when people questioned me or looked at me and be like, Donny, you all right? Why are you acting different? Before I would like shut down more quickly. Now I'm able to be like, I'm able to take myself in that moment and be like, okay, Donny, you just need to do what you can to explain as clearly as you can that you're not in a headspace that you need to be in right now and that you'll get there. You just need to have that support.
Right.
Because, and I guess if we go back to challenges for a second, one of the other challenges about mental health in general is anticipating and understanding how those challenges affect the people around you. Like that's been really a challenge for me in the past in the sense that I've lost friendships over it. I've pushed people away over it. And therapy has helped me look at and examine the social aspects
Mhm.
of that, if that makes sense. I don't know. I just talked myself in a circle. I don't know if that made sense at all.
It did make sense, yeah.
Uh, but so what's your worst story about medication that happened to you or somebody else? Well, honestly, Ari, the worst story that I can think about is probably your experience.
I have a really bad story. So I was in the mental hospital, and this girl, she carried her pills in her purse with her all the time, like all of her medications, and she was
Mhm.
going to a party, and she decided that she was going to overdose that day, and she took all of her medication. She just went, huh,
Oh my
all of her
God.
medication, and she passed out in a field, woke up a few hours later, and then went up and went the rest of her medication, and she passed out, and they had to pump her stomach because she just decided that she was going to just basically guzzle all of her pills. And yeah, she didn't die, but she should have died.
Wow, that's scary. That's really scary. Yeah. I really don't have a worse story about medication that can compare with that, honestly. So, like, I guess it's important to think when you are on medication that it needs to be handled very practically, which is why so many people work with you when it comes to medications, like professionals. That way you can make sure that they are being used correctly and in the way that they're supposed to be used.
Right. That's why I just I never heard of somebody doing something like that before, and it was so it was so stark to see somebody so suicidal and just that they would do something like that, like that they had that suicidal ideation and that they
And
would
it,
just
yeah, it like allowed them to in their mind rationalize it. Oh, this medication is a gateway for me in order to do this. And that's a scary place to be in
right,
for
and that
someone
they
to
would
be
take
in.
their psychological medication in such a way, and I was just like, it just was like I never saw my psych meds as like something that would be used in such a manner, and
Hmm.
so it was just so it just I just couldn't believe it, and it was just so like horrifying to me,
Very unsettling for sure.
very unsettling.
What's the best story about medication that's happened to you or someone else?
I have so many good stories because I'm part of a bipolar support group, and I have seen so many people who have been affected positively by medication that I don't have just one story. I have thousands of stories of people who have been changed for the better. So, um, people who have taken medication to get even and get back on their lives and get back on their feet again, and just to get back working and get back on their feet and just back to regular life. And um, it's so many people, it's thousands of people. So I don't have one story. I have thousands of people who I have. So
Well, and the truth is the fact that there are so many meaningful, positive stories about the good things that medication has done for people on their mental health journeys. Like, I think that means that's significant. That's very validating. Okay, Leo. Rogue Agent and Leo have to go. We're probably going to be wrapping up here shortly because we're almost at the end of our questions. But if you have to leave, have a good night and thank you for tuning in with us. Um, so let's talk about how the media portrays taking medication. We've already talked about it briefly within the context of the Joker. Are there any other ones that you can think of, Ari, off the top of your head?
I not off the top of my head. I think the Joker was like one of the biggest ones that I could think of as far as like medication. Um,
Yeah, I
uh,
can't think of any off the top of my head either.
uh, oh, there's a Saved by the Bell episode where she takes pills and it's like speed to lose weight.
Oh,
She abuses pills that way. But that's something else. That's not medication.
I mean, I'm
Uh,
sure there are media examples out there for sure, though. Yeah. Uh, I think this is a really good episode. Like, I'm really like I'm glad that we talked about this topic.
mhm.
So, looking forward to next week, the next episode is talking about stereotypes in mass media. So, there's a lot that could go into that. So, that's going to be a very interesting episode for sure. Um, Thank you all for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you tuning in. We had quite a few viewers for an extended period of time, which makes us super happy. So, well, if you are not tuned into this and you are watching it after this gets posted, feel free to comment if you would like, because we do reference back to the comments. Subscribe to Ari's channel, Strange Nothings. Go buy our collections of poems, Carbon Footprint for me, Full of Now for Ari, both of which talk about mental health. And last but not least, click like on our video. All right. We love you all, and you have a good night. Bye.